Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. As we think about those who we encounter on a day-to-day basis, I think when it comes to the way that they engage the Christian faith, there's basically three types of people. There's those who are antagonistic against Christianity. They not only don't believe what Christians believe, but they actually are very verbal in speaking out against the Christian faith, the Christian worldview. You know, you can find these, especially on Facebook. You know, they really speak very harshly against Christianity and what we believe. But then there's also those who really don't care. They're not antagonistic against Christianity. They're not ugly towards Christians or anything like that. They just don't really care. You can share your faith with them. They might agree with you on a few points, but then they go on their way unconverted, not really even taking too much serious thought into what you have to say. But then there's the third type of people that we encounter, and these are the inquirers. Now, in other words, these are the ones that are really searching. These are ones that are asking questions. They've heard some things about Jesus. They've heard some things about Christianity, and they come to you to try to figure out if these things are true. And these are the ones that we want to focus on the most when we encounter people, because these are ones that I think are most open to receiving the gospel. Not that we shouldn't share the gospel with the other two that we've mentioned, but it's just that the third type, those who are really questioning and really inquiring, are typically more open-minded and therefore more open to receive the gospel. The Queen of Sheba was this type of person. In 1 Kings chapter 10 and verse 1, it says, "Now when the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with difficult questions. So she came to Jerusalem with a very large retinue, with camels carrying spices and very much gold and precious stones. When she came to Solomon, she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was hidden from the king, which he did not explain to her. When the queen of Sheba perceived all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his servants, the attendance of his waiters and their attire, his cupbearers, and his stairway by which he went up to the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. Then she said to the king, 'It was a true report which I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. Nevertheless, I did not believe the reports until I came and my eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told me. You exceed in wisdom and prosperity the report which I heard. How blessed are your men! How blessed are these your servants who stand before you continually and hear your wisdom.'" Alright, so here the Queen of Sheba had come up, and she had come from quite a long distance to come up and listen to Solomon to see if he is really as wise as she had heard. And after she asked him some questions, and he was able to answer all of her questions, and I'm sure they were very, very difficult questions, but he answered them, she became a believer. She said, "Wow, this guy's got a lot of wisdom." And not only that, but when she saw the people that was working with him, when she saw the house that he had built, it says there was no more spirit in her. She said, "You know what, the report that I heard wasn't even halfway true. You exceed in the things that I heard." Well, when people come to us, they ought to get kind of the same impression that the Queen of Sheba had. Because if you think about it, the king that we serve is even more wiser than Solomon himself. Colossians chapter 2 and verse 3 says, "In whom," that is in Christ, "are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge." In other words, all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, Christ is the basis of all wisdom and knowledge. So this is the king that we serve, and surely when people come to us, they ought to see that wisdom being shown. We ought to be those people, the type of people who are wise. We should be wise in the way that we act. And James, in the book of James, he talks about in chapter 3 a wisdom that is outwardly displayed in the life that we live. He says, he says, in verse 17, but the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering and without hypocrisy. Is that what people see when they look at our lives? When they come with an inquiring mind, wanting to know more about Christianity, and maybe they haven't even asked a question yet, but they just look and observe. Do they see these qualities in our life? Are we peaceable? Are we gentle with others? Are we reasonable? Are we the type of people you can reason with? Are we full of mercy? Are we full of good fruits? Are we doing good works? Are we unwavering, and are we without hypocrisy? Boy, that's a big one. A lot of people really are turned off from Christianity because they feel like they see a lot of hypocrisy. We definitely don't want to display that. So there's this outward wisdom that we should be showing as people come to inquire of us some things. But then there's also a wisdom that is within, a wisdom that goes really deeper than just what we are outwardly showing, a spiritual type of wisdom. This is what is spoken about in Colossians chapter 1, when Paul prays for this in regards to the Colossians. He says in verse 9, for this reason also, since the day we heard of it, we have not ceased to pray for you, and to ask that you would be filled with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding. And so when people observe what we do, they should see wisdom. But then also when they see the way that we speak, the knowledge that we have, the understanding that we have within, they ought to see wisdom as well. And then when they ask us questions, we ought to have answers for them as best as we can. In 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15, it says, but sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts. Always be ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence. So these people who have an inquiring heart might do the same thing to you as the Queen of Sheba did for Solomon. They might come actually asking you questions to see what the Christian faith is all about. And Peter says here that we ought to have answers for them. We ought to be prepared for people when they come and ask us these questions. And so this isn't something that we can do on the spot. Someone comes up to ask us a question and all of a sudden we try to get an answer together. This is something we have to prepare for day in and day out, to be ready to make a defense for the Christian faith. Now, in saying that, I don't want to scare people, because some people don't want to share their faith because they're scared they're going to be asked questions they don't know. Maybe you're a new believer, you haven't been in the faith for very long. Don't be afraid. If they do ask you a question and you don't know the answer, still show a good attitude and tell them, hey, I don't know the answer to that. I will get back to you after I do some research, but I definitely want to get you that answer. And I think maybe people will appreciate you just going through the effort to get them the answer, even if you don't know it on the spot. So don't be afraid, but at the same time, do the best you can to have the answers ready and at hand when they come to you inquiring you about the Christian faith. And so that's the first thing we want to think about as we look at 1 Kings chapter 10. When people come looking and inquiring about the Christian beliefs, the Christian life, do they see wisdom, and do they hear wisdom in the way that we speak? But secondly, do they see how blessed we are as we serve God? Remember also what she saw was when she saw the attendance, she saw the house that he had built. Remember, we are the house, we are the tabernacle, we are the temple of God. When they see the temple, when they come into the church services, what do they see? Do they see people who are diligent and working for the Lord? Do they see people who are exercising their gifts in the proper way? And when they see all this, do they come away with the same conclusion that the Queen of Sheba did? This is alluded to in 1 Corinthians chapter 14. In verse 24 it says, but if all prophesy and an unbeliever or an ungifted man enters, he is convicted by all, he is called to account by all, the secrets of his heart are disclosed, and so he will fall on his face and worship God, declaring that God is certainly among you. That, to me, that rings very closely to what the Queen of Sheba walked away thinking. there in 1 Kings chapter 10. When people come into the church service, do they recognize, hey, God is with these people? These people have a wisdom that's unexplainable. These people are doing things that nobody else is doing. They're living a life that is unique and different than everybody else. People ought to be impressed when they see God's servants, Christ's servants, gather together around to feast, to worship, to love the Lord, and when they see that, they ought to walk away saying, wow, that was really something. So these are just some things to think about. Hopefully we can really reach out to those who are inquiring, who really want to know more about the Christian faith. And we need to be sensitive to those people and really give them the impression that the Queen of Sheba had when she inquired about the wisdom of Solomon and his wealth. Well, thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you guys have a great Easter Sunday. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you here again tomorrow. God bless.